The night the road almost swallowed her hope, the rain fell like it wanted to erase every trace of her existence. Headlights sliced through the darkness of a forgotten highway in rural Ohio, revealing a woman clutching a small child, her shoes soaked, her breath trembling, her dignity hanging by a thread. She had not planned to be there. No one ever plans to be abandoned on the side of the road with a hungry child and nowhere left to go. And yet, in that moment, as a black luxury car slowed down beside her, fate quietly changed direction. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of one human choice to change a life forever, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that may be hurting in silence. Her name was Sarah Whitmore, a 29-year-old single mother whose life had been slowly unraveling for years. She once lived in a modest apartment in Indiana, worked at a grocery store, and believed that if she stayed honest and worked hard, life would eventually meet her halfway. But reality had been cruel. Her husband, a man she trusted blindly, disappeared one morning with their savings in her car, leaving behind unpaid bills, a foreclosure notice, and a silence that screamed louder than words. With no family willing to help and shelters already overflowing, Sarah made the desperate decision to travel to her aunt in Pennsylvania, clinging to a promise that may or may not still exist. Halfway through the journey, the borrowed car broke down, the phone battery died, and the driver who had agreed to help left her and her 5-year-old son Noah on the shoulder of an empty road, claiming he could not risk missing work. Noah's small arms were wrapped tightly around her neck, his face buried in her jacket as the cold seeped into their bones. Sarah stood there, fighting tears, fighting panic, fighting the crushing voice in her head telling her she had failed as a mother. She waved at passing cars, but most sped by, their drivers unwilling to slow down for a woman who looked like trouble. Each minute felt heavier than the last until one car finally stopped. It was sleek, expensive, and out of place on that broken road. Inside the car was Michael Anderson, a self-made millionaire from Chicago, returning from a business retreat. He had grown up poor, raised by a mother who cleaned houses and taught him that money meant nothing if you lost your humanity along the way. He noticed Sarah not because she looked desperate, but because she looked defeated in a way he recognized too well. He stepped out into the rain, his tailored coat quickly soaked, and studied the scene without judgment. He saw a mother protecting her child, not a problem to avoid. Michael listened as Sarah explained her situation through shaking breaths, her pride already stripped away by circumstance. He made a decision that would later ripple through all their lives. He told her to come with him, not as an order, but as an invitation. There was no paperwork, no conditions, no questions asked beyond what was necessary. Just a simple act of trust offered to someone who had been living without it. They drove through the storm toward Cleveland, where Michael owned a guest house he rarely used. Sarah sat in silence, gripping Noah tightly, waiting for fear to catch up with relief. But it never did. Instead, something unfamiliar settled in her chest: safety. That night, for the first time in weeks, Noah slept peacefully in a warm bed. Sarah cried quietly in the bathroom, overwhelmed not by sadness, but by the shock of being helped without being judged. The days that followed were slow and cautious. Michael did not hover or interrogate. He provided food, clean clothes, and space. Sarah learned that he owned multiple companies, funded scholarships, and kept his philanthropy private. He learned that Sarah once dreamed of becoming a nurse, but dropped out of college when Noah was born, and her marriage fell apart. She spent her days cleaning the guest house, cooking simple meals, and slowly regaining her sense of worth. Noah began to smile again, chasing squirrels in the yard, his laughter echoing through a place that had been empty for years. But healing is never a straight line. Sarah battled shame, convinced that kindness always came with a price. She woke from nightmares of being thrown out, of losing Noah, of ending up back on the road. Michael noticed her tension and offered her something more than shelter. He helped her enroll in a local community college, arranged childcare, and connected her with counseling services, not because he felt sorry for her, but because he believed in investment where others saw risk. Months passed, and change took root quietly. Sarah studied hard, worked part-time at a clinic, and began to see herself not as a victim, but as a survivor. She paid her own bills again. She saved small amounts of money. She stood taller. The woman who once waited helplessly on the roadside now walked with purpose, her eyes no longer filled with fear, but determination. Michael watched the transformation with quiet pride. He never took credit. He never reminded her where she came from. He simply gave her the one thing no system ever had, a chance without humiliation. In return, Sarah's resilience reminded him why he built his success in the first place. Not for status, but for moments like this, when wealth could become a bridge instead of a wall. Years later, Sarah stood in a white uniform, holding her nursing license, Noah cheering in the front row. The road that once broke her had led her here. She never forgot that night in Ohio, the rain, the headlights, the stranger who stopped. She told Noah often that angels do not always have wings. Sometimes they drive black cars and listen when others turn away. As this story nears its end, if it touched your heart even a little, if it reminded you that kindness still exists in a world that often feels cold, please take a moment to like, share, and engage with this video. Your support keeps these true-to-life stories alive and spreading hope where it's needed most. And before we close, we have a special request for you. Comment below with the words, "I choose kindness," if you believe that one small act can change a life forever. Sarah and Noah eventually moved into a small home of their own, not gifted but earned. Michael returned to his busy world, forever changed by one decision on a rainy night. And somewhere on a quiet American road, hope still waits for the next car willing to stop.